Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by New Jersey Sharing Network, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. Choose New Jersey, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, moving the region through air, land, rail, and sea. And by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer. And by Meadowlands Chamber, building connections, driving business growth.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to another remote program where we may be remote, but we're still doing quality stuff. And in that spirit, let me introduce for the first time with us Carin Hep, who is Sales Director of Small Group and Individual Programs at Delta Dental of New Jersey, an underwriter of our program at the Caucus Educational Corporation. Carin, let me ask you this. Small business, most significant challenges they are facing in the middle of May as we do this program. It'll be seen after. Biggest challenges are?
Yeah, thanks. Great question, Steve, and it's great to be here. Even in the best of times, small businesses have their own unique set of challenges. But with lack of resources compared to larger firms, I think right now what small businesses are challenged with is, they're already working on thin margins, and right. Small businesses, they don't have, some of them had reserves, but most of them didn't have any reserves. So now faced with this crisis, there's not a lot to go on. So they are looking for capital, essentially. I think that's the big thing. Small employer loans, small business association loans, the Paycheck Protection Program, the CARES Act, all of these types of things are resources for them. But these are some of their challenges.
But Carin, we're a small not-for-profit business, right? We have a bottom line, but we're a not-profit. But what always strikes me is people like saying, well, why shouldn't you be prepared? Or why weren't you prepared? How does one prepare? How does a small business prepare for a global pandemic?
That's a great question as well. I'm not sure that anyone was prepared for this. I know that larger firms, they have the resources to, have a disaster recovery plan in place, but most small businesses did not. And I think this creates an opportunity for them to, moving forward, either create a plan for themselves so that if this does happen again, they're ready, or outsource that to have someone come in and set them up so that they can pivot quickly, like so many firms have had to do, so many small businesses have had to do during this time with remote workforces and delivering their products and services to people without being on site and doing it remotely.
How are you and your colleagues attempting to directly help small businesses?
Yeah, another great question. We are doing a lot, to help businesses struggling with the financial impacts of this crisis. We started in March with extending our grace periods to 90 days. Essentially, what that means is that no benefits contract will terminate for non-payment before June 30th. We've also implemented something that we're calling hibernation. So for those employers that absolutely have to terminate their policy, we're allowing them to come back at any point during this year. And essentially, we will turn that policy back on at a future date. And this alleviates the administrative burden of having to come back with us and do all the paperwork and start a policy again. We also have held rates 2020, which means any employer with less than 500 employees who has a renewal for the rest of the year will not see a rate increase. And something that we're getting ready to roll out is our customer rebate. And that's a 30% rebate over a 3-month period to our customers.
In the limited time we have left, let me ask you this. As the economy reopens, different places, different parts of the state, different parts of the nation, as we're doing this program, what are some of the keys that some of these small businesses are going to face in terms of making their small business not just successful economically, but most importantly, safe from a public health point of view? There's investment there, right? You got to do all kinds of things, particularly restaurants.
Absolutely. I'll just bring up our dental providers, right? Dental practices, the majority of them are small businesses. So they have been hit, some of them have been hit the hardest during this crisis. When they reopen, things are going to be different, right? You're going to go back to the dentist and you're probably going to be sitting in the parking lot and not the waiting room. The dentists are going to have a lot of PPE, face shields, hair coverings, gowns, chair covers, things like that. So
one patient at a time.
One patient at a time. Exactly. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's going to be a lot of change. But I think that the small business community is optimistic, and people are anxious to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Speaking of normalcy, as we wrap up, I want to thank Carin Hep and the team at Delta Dental New Jersey. One of the things I look forward to every year is hosting the annual Delta Dental golf outing that raises money for Special Olympics. And things have been put off, but life goes on, and that will be rescheduled. And I look forward to being with you and your colleagues and a terrific team at Special Olympics of New Jersey and the work they do. So thank you for joining us, Carin. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I'd like to just thank the healthcare workers, the first responders, and all of our essential workers for giving of themselves every day. We're deeply grateful. So thank you.
We can't say that enough. Thank you, Carin. Well said. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back. I'm Steve Adubato. We're continuing a conversation we've been having with Bob Garrett, CEO, Hackensack Meridian Health. Bob, last time you joined us, we talked about a range of issues, including the plasma transfusion therapy. But I want to do this. I've said before that I've done a lot of physician leadership development. What does the physician of tomorrow need to look like to deal with the world of healthcare tomorrow, whatever that's going to look like?
Right. I think, first of all, let me give a big shout out to our physicians. They truly have been healthcare heroes, along with our nurses, our respiratory therapists, our frontline caregivers. I mean, I think when the book is written about COVID-19, they will all go down as true American heroes. I think the physician, as we look forward, the physician of the future is going to be one that's going to have to, show some flexibility in terms of how they deliver care. Some of it will be done remotely. Some of it will be done in person. I do think that, what this crisis, this pandemic has taught us is that, physicians need to be agile, and they certainly were agile. So, all hands on deck, so to speak. And, I think there's also more of a feeling of collaboration amongst physicians. Yep. So a lot of sharing of data. So as an example, our scientists in the Center for Discovery and Innovation work very, very closely with frontline clinicians, and they directed their research to areas that would really make a difference.
Did they share it?
They shared it. And, two great examples, which were unbelievable game changers for this pandemic, were early on, Dr. Perlin and his team at the Center for
David Perlin over at the Center for Discovery and Innovation. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bob.
Correct. Over at that CDI, they developed a diagnostic test for COVID-19 really before most of these tests that are out now were out. The only other test that in the early part of this pandemic that was available to us was a test being run at the State Department of Health, which very quickly got overrun and with testing demand, and it took like 5 days, 7 days to get the turnaround. Dr. Perlin's test got approved. Well, first it got developed and approved within a week of the first patients coming to Hackensack Meridian, that was a huge game changer because so many patients we benefited by that test being administered so early. And then the second game changer was the convalescent plasma infusion, and that was a result of talk between Dr. Donato on the front lines at Hackensack Meridian and Dr. Perlin in the scientific world. And Dr. Donato said, listen, if you can put your scientists to work in developing this plasma serum, that's something that I think can help our COVID-19 patients right away. So they went to work on it very quickly and literally within weeks turned it around. And now it's been a big success story.
Before I let you go, Bob, real quick, and I want to disclose, as I did the last time Bob joined us, that Hackensack Meridian Health is one of the largest healthcare systems in the state and also a big supporter of what we do, an underwriter of what we're doing. Bob, it's interesting. When we talk about collaboration, you mentioned that Dr. Perlin, Dr. Donato, sharing, collaborating. I mean, the hospital world is pretty competitive, okay? But I've heard Governor Cuomo talk about this. I've heard Governor Murphy. I know that you were right there next to him in one of the early press conferences. Do you believe that there's a different sense of quote unquote collaboration? Yes, there's competition, geographic, et cetera. But do you believe there's a new normal, new world for collaboration among and between hospitals and hospital systems? And if so, what does it look like?
Absolutely. We've been conferring almost on a daily basis with our colleagues out there in other healthcare systems. We're sharing best practices. We're talking through issues, whether it's about universal masking of patients and team members to how we're going to test patients and team members into the future. We're sharing all that information. So there's been great collaboration amongst health systems, amongst hospitals, which I think will become the new normal, and I welcome that. I think it's great. There's new collaboration between researchers. Scientists are sharing their breakthroughs, their scientific data, and there's new collaboration between the government and the private sector. So the working relationship between the hospitals and the Department of Health and the governor's office has been superb. And I know I want to give a shout out both to our Commissioner of Health and to the governor because they've been really great. They've been responsive and very, very collaborative during this entire process.
One more quick question to Bob Garrett, the CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health, before I let you go, Bob. The federal government, very much involved from day one. The president, the particular federal agencies, there's so many federal agencies involved. To what degree does your healthcare system, does any healthcare system, hospitals, et cetera, need to interact and engage directly with the government? A, and B, how hard is it to do that?
Well, we have been engaging directly with the federal government, through calls, through Zoom video, et cetera. We've had the opportunity to talk to Secretary of Health and Human Services, Azar, through a couple of his deputies as well.
We do this program today, I just want to clarify, we're taping in the middle of May. I'm not doing commentary. I'm just saying we're in the middle of May.
Right.
Azar's there now.
Azar's there right now. Yeah. So we've been conferring with him. We've had the opportunities to confer with the FDA and the CDC as well. And even there's been even reach outs within the White House task force with Dr. Birx as well as others. Dr. Fauci, I think, was in communication with a couple of our scientists. So I wouldn't say it's every day, but I think throughout the pandemic, there's been good interaction with the federal agencies as well.
Bob Garrett, the CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health, 17 hospitals, a range of other affiliated and connected healthcare operations that it's a big footprint. Bob, I want to thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Most importantly, to you and to all the folks at HMH and the network group on the front lines dealing with COVID-19. We wish you all the best and wish them the best. They are, as you said, the real heroes. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, Steve. And we appreciate all the support for our healthcare heroes.
Well said. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Recently, I had the opportunity on a series we do called Lessons in Leadership with my co-host and the executive producer of that series, Mary Gamba. We sat down and we spoke with Dr. Maurice Elias, who is a professor of psychology at Rutgers University. We talked about emotional intelligence and leadership, but we also talked about the fear and anxiety so many people are experiencing in the age of COVID-19, and also how to talk to our kids, teenagers, younger kids, and frankly, how to deal from a mental health point of view with this incredibly challenging situation. This is Dr. Maurice Elias. Hi, this is Steve Adubato. Welcome to Lessons in Leadership. This situation, the COVID-19 crisis, if you will, the pandemic, is not stopping us from producing important programming about leadership, about communication, frankly, dealing with these most difficult times for all of us. And don't get turned off or thrown off by the word leader and say, well, I'm not a leader. That's not me. Well, tell you what, I'm betting you're the leader of your house, or there are other leaders in your home, and you're dealing with a whole range of issues at home: decision-making, communication, management, anxiety, all those issues, keeping people positive and upbeat, but at the same time dealing with this reality. I don't know how much different that is from dealing in the workplace. In many ways, the family is a microcosm of the workplace. And in that spirit, I want to introduce our executive producer of Lessons in Leadership, the co-host of this program, my colleague, Mary Gamba. How you doing, Mary?
I'm doing really great, Steve. I'm excited to be doing this Zoom interview in this format. Obviously, as you said, these are really challenging times, but it has caused us all to adapt, to reinvent, and to be strategically agile. So I'm looking forward to having a great conversation today.
You know what's interesting about this, and by the way, to Frank and Elvin and everyone who's behind the scenes making this happen, as well as our son, Nick, who's off camera, if you do not have a 17-year-old who understands technology, you're in trouble. We do. We're lucky that way. But in that spirit, I just want to make it clear that we could talk about leadership, and here are the best practices, and here are the 5 things you need to do. But on another level, all of us who are leaders of for-profits, not-for-profits, educational institutions, churches, government, there's an emotional side to this. There's a psychological side to this. It's personal for a lot of us, if not all of us. In that spirit, when it comes to these kinds of issues, you reach out for people who know better than you do, which is an important leadership trait. Know what you know what you don't know, and figure out who knows what you don't. And in that spirit, I want to introduce our good friend, Dr. Maurice Elias, who is the professor of psychology at the great Rutgers University, not because it's my alma mater, it's because it's a great school, Rutgers University, and also the director of the Rutgers Social, Emotional, and Character Development Lab. Good to see you, Maurice.
Good to be here, Steve.
Maurice, I set this up by saying leadership in a lot of ways involves emotional intelligence, a term you're very familiar with. You've written about it along with Dr. Daniel Goleman, and the personal side of it, managing our emotions, keeping in check. Am I overestimating the importance of the emotional side of leadership?
I think in the crisis that we're facing now, you're underestimating the emotional side of leadership. People are close together, relationships are strained. We are trying to reach out to people over electronic media, and the emotions that are involved in this are very, very powerful. So no, I don't think it's overstating it at all.
So stay with me on this, because stress. I mean, it's such I'm not gonna say an overused word, because there is tremendous stress right now. Are there some keys to, quote, managing our stress during this pandemic?
We have to recognize our own feelings. And, that is not such an easy thing to do. That's one of the reasons why in my work, we find it so important for schools to attend to this issue, because when we're in a crisis, that is a hard time to learn how to manage your emotions. It's easier to learn these things when you're not in the middle of a crisis. But how can we make good decisions if we're not able to understand the stresses that we're under, understand the stresses that other people are under, our coworkers, our families? We have to manage all these things in a leadership context. And that, of course, involves stress. Now, one of the things I think that is so critical is that we have to be able to differentiate how we're feeling from how other people are feeling. And we have to be able to do that in a way that allows us to then process that to make decisions. I think that's the big leadership challenge, is that it's not just logic. It's logic plus emotions that helps to govern the decisions we make.
So, Mary, I want to jump in here because, Dr. Elias is talking about leadership in the workplace, leadership in your family. And one of the things I've said, and we'll talk about this throughout these programs, is this. it is hard to differentiate sometimes between our home life. I'm in my home, Maurice is in his home, Mary's in her home, our production crew, everyone's in their home. So there's family life, there's home. Mary, jump in and talk to Dr. Elias and ask him what we've been talking about as it relates to our kids and managing the work and the family issues at the same time.
Yeah, I know for us, Steve, we have talked a lot because we have high school age children right now who are dealing with, my son in particular, not having a graduation, not having a prom.
A senior in high school going to college in the fall.
Definitely. So it really makes it challenging to communicate to them, okay, this, even though it seems really bad right now, it's not the end of the world. But for them, of course, they've been going to school for so long that they look forward to having that celebration at the end. So we've been working a lot and just talking about managing expectations, making the best of a really bad situation. But I would love to get your feedback because a lot of the communication coming from the administrators at the school are saying, we really don't know what's going to be happening with the prom. They know it's postponed. They don't know what's going to be happening with graduation. We know it's postponed. So what should educators and people tell parents and children when they really don't know, but also help to ease some of that stress and uncertainty that we all have?
And we've got to treat our kids as partners in this. And I think we have to help them understand at whatever age they are, what is going on here. They need to understand, what is an infectious disease? How does that work? Why are we engaging in these cautious practices? People think that people are being overly alarmist about this, but it's important that at every age that our kids understand. And because it's not like we're trying to make them feel better because we deprive them of something. These are life-threatening issues. And if our kids don't really understand it, then we're kind of trying to put like an emotional Band-Aid on them. But that in a way is disrespecting them. Their disappointment is deep and tremendous, and we can't push that away.
Right. And what about on the flip side, though, Maurice, when it comes to the parents who have young, say, first, second, third grade, they're balancing work, they're balancing literally teaching their kids how to read. What recommendations and advice do you have for those parents? Because those are a totally different set of stresses that they have of trying to give their attention to work, give their attention to their children. What advice do you have for them?
Most important thing to do is to set up routines and to be very transparent about the fact that everything is a work in progress. We're going to try this, we're going to try that. But I think it is critically important for kids to have routines, to know how the day is going to go, to know, for example, when mom or dad is going to be in the workplace, i.e. in a room behind that door that you're not going to be able to enter for X amount of time, and why that is. And helping kids then to have things to do during that time, et cetera. Now, it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
You're not going to be able to keep, a toddler from coming into your office space or knocking on the door or something. But we all understand that. And so we have to be compassionate and understanding toward our kids, but also give them structure. Structure and predictability, even in a time of uncertainty, is the best way to manage stress in a long-term situation.
Dr. Elias, in the limited time we have, I want to ask you this. Mary and I talk a lot about emotional intelligence. First of all, where does the term come from? And B, how do you define it in a very practical as opposed to a scholarly or academic perspective, which a lot of us would struggle with accessing?
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk a lot about leadership. We talk about leadership. So emotional intelligence are the skills of everydayship. They are the skills you need to manage every day. And what is that? To know how the people around you are feeling. To know when you've got very strong feelings, how to get a handle on them. To have a sense of empathy. To be able to be compassionate. To be able to work well in groups, but also by yourself. To know when to lead, when to go back. And to be a good problem solver, because isn't that the skill that we all need right now? We need to know how to solve these problems, which keep changing in front of us day by day. And these are skills that kids need to be taught. Just like we need to teach reading, even though every kid has an innate ability to read, we still have to teach reading. We still have to help kids learn the skills of emotional intelligence. Now, the challenges of life, who would have predicted this one? Who knows what the next one is going to be? But our ability to relate to each other, our ability to solve problems, our ability to deal with strong emotions, that is never going to change in its importance. And schools will benefit from equipping kids with these competencies.
Dr. Maurice Elias, a mentor of mine, a mentor to many at Rutgers University, doing important work, professor of psychology, also director of the Rutgers Social, Emotional, and Character Development Lab. Our good friend Maurice Elias, thank you for joining us, and all the best to you and your family.
Great pleasure, and the same to you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Sharing Network, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, NJM Insurance Group, Choose New Jersey, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer and by Meadowlands Chamber. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
I could feel my lungs fill with oxygen, and I got my life back.
The Sharing Network means to me hope, life, and everything.
The Sharing Network was a lifeline to me when I really needed it.
We are an organ procurement organization.
The core purpose of the New Jersey Sharing Network is to save and enhance lives.
To honor those who gave.
Pay tribute to those who received.
Offer hope to those who continue to wait.
And remember the lives lost while waiting.
For the gift of life.